The Unthinkable Betrayal, a story that will leave you speechless and remind you of the importance of parental love and care. My name is Kofi Owusu, and I'm a child abuse activist. But, ironically, I am also a convicted child abuser. This is my story, the cautionary tale of how the unthinkable can happen to anyone. In the bustling city of Awushi, Tanda, there lived a young boy named Kofi. Kofi was a bright and curious child, with a smile that could light up a room. Meet the Owusus, a loving family of 3 living in Awushi, Tanda. Mr. Owusu, a successful businessman, and his wife Akua, a caring homemaker, adored their 7-year-old Kofi. They worked hard to provide for their son, and they always made sure that he was safe and happy. They live in a beautiful house with a big backyard, where the little Kofi loved to play. One day, Mr. and Mrs. Owusu decide to hire a house help, Auntie Isai as she was popularly called, to assist with household chores. Auntie Isai is a kind and gentle woman from the village, who has experience caring for children. Isai worked for the Owusu for many years, and they had always trusted her to take care of Kofi. But what they didn't know was that Isai had a dark secret. Auntie Isai's dark secret was one that she had kept hidden for years. Behind her kind and gentle demeanor, she had a sinister intention. She had been using her position as a house help to gain the trust of the children in her care, and then she would abuse them. Auntie Isai's abuse was not just physical, but also emotional. She would manipulate Kofi, telling him that he was a bad child and that he deserved the abuse. She would also threaten him, telling him that if he ever told anyone about their affair, he would die. Kofi was terrified. He didn't know what to do or who to turn to. He was trapped in a living nightmare, and he didn't know how to escape. Meanwhile, Auntie Isai continues to deceive Mr. and Mrs. Owusu, pretending to be the caring and loving house help they thought they knew. As Kofi's health deteriorates, he was experiencing strange symptoms, such as fever and fatigue. His parents become desperate for answers. They start to suspect that something is wrong, but they can't quite put their finger on it. One day, Kofi's condition becomes critical, and he's rushed to the hospital. The doctors, after a series of examination and tests conducted on the young boy, finally, he was diagnosed of HIV. Amazed his parents were, because neither of them tested positive. This made them very troubled. Upon their return home from the hospital, Kofi's parents attempted to engage him in conversation about his experiences with Auntie Isai. Initially, Kofi remained tight-lipped, but his parents' gentle prodding and reassurances eventually helped him to open up. During a quiet moment while his mother was tucking him into bed, Kofi hesitantly began to reveal the details of his interactions with Auntie Isai. His mother listened attentively, providing reassurance and comfort as Kofi shared his story. Kofi confided in his mother that Auntie Isai had threatened him, telling him that he would die if he ever disclosed their secret. He expressed his deep-seated fear of dying and his desire for protection. With tears in his eyes, Kofi apologized for not speaking out sooner, acknowledging that there were times when he had even initiated interactions with Auntie Isai. Kofi's mother listened attentively, providing emotional support and validation. She reassured Kofi that he was safe, that she would protect him, and that he was not to blame for the abuse he suffered. Kofi's mom, Mrs. Owusu, listened in stunned silence as Kofi recounted his interactions with Auntie Isai. Her face was a mask of calmness, but inside, she was seething with rage. As Kofi spoke, his mom's eyes narrowed and her jaw clenched. She could feel her anger rising, threatening to boil over. But she knew she had to keep her cool, at least until Kofi was finished talking. She took a deep breath and focused on her son's words, trying to process the enormity of what he was telling her. Auntie Isai, the woman she had trusted to care for her child, had been abusing her own son. The thought made her blood run cold. As Kofi finished speaking, Kofi's mom felt a wave of fury wash over her. She wanted to scream, to shout, to lash out at Auntie Isai for her betrayal. But she knew she had to remain calm for Kofi's sake. She took another deep breath and reached out to her son, pulling him into a tight hug. "Kofi, my son, I am so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I had no idea. I should have protected you better. Kofi hugged her back, tears streaming down his face. It's not your fault, Mom, he said, his voice shaking. I should have told you sooner. She held her son close, her heart heavy with grief and anger. She knew that she would have to confront Auntie Deceit to demand answers and justice for her son. But for now, she just held Kofi, trying to comfort him, trying to make sense of the chaos that had erupted in their lives. Mr. and Mrs. Owusu are devastated. They can't believe that the woman they trusted with their son's life could do something so heinous. Auntie Deceit's arrest was just the beginning of her downfall. As the investigation into her actions continued, more and more evidence came to light, revealing the full extent of her cruelty. She was charged with multiple counts of child abuse and neglect, including physical and emotional abuse, neglect, and exploitation. The charges also included allegations of sexual abuse, which Auntie Deceit had inflicted on several children, including Kofi. As the trial began, the prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against Auntie Deceit, including testimony from Kofi and other victims, as well as physical evidence and documentation of her abuse. Auntie Deceit's defense team tried to argue that she was mentally ill and not responsible for her actions, but the prosecution countered with evidence of her premeditation and deliberate actions. In the end, the judge found Auntie Deceit guilty on all counts and sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As Auntie Deceit was led away in handcuffs, Kofi and his family felt a sense of relief and closure. They knew that justice had been served and that Auntie Deceit would never be able to harm another child again. Never did they know this was just the beginning of an evil circle of cruelty. Kofi's journey of recovery was long and difficult, but with the support of his family and therapy, he was eventually able to heal and move forward, at least so we all thought. He became an advocate for child abuse awareness and prevention, using his experience to help others. Years had passed since Kofi's ordeal with Auntie Deceit. To everyone's surprise, he had not only survived but had also thrived. He had become a vocal advocate for child abuse awareness and prevention, using his platform to help others who had suffered similar traumas. But despite his outward appearance of strength and resilience, a part of Kofi's soul was still trapped. The wounds of his past lingered, festering beneath the surface. Unbeknownst to those around him, Kofi was still haunted by the demons of his childhood. The devil, in the form of Auntie Deceit's abuse, still had a hold of him. The memories of his trauma lingered, refusing to be extinguished. As for me, Kofi Owusu, I'm sitting in my prison cell, reflecting on my own past. I was a victim of child abuse, and it's a pain that I've carried with me my entire life. Kofi's advocacy work was, in part, a way of coping with his pain. By helping others, he was able to momentarily distract himself from his own suffering. But the truth was, Kofi was still a work in progress. He was still healing, still struggling to come to terms with his past. And so, beneath the surface of his confident exterior, Kofi was still wrestling with the devil. He was still trapped in a cycle of pain and trauma, unable to fully escape the grasp of his abuser. As a child abuse activist, I had dedicated my life to protecting the innocent and vulnerable. I had spoken out against abuse, advocated for stronger laws and policies, and worked tirelessly to support survivors. But, despite my best efforts, I had a dark secret. A secret that I kept hidden even from those closest to me. A secret that would ultimately lead to my downfall. I had become a perpetrator myself. I had my way with a minor, a young girl who had trusted me and looked up to me as a role model. I know it sounds unbelievable, even to myself. How could someone who had dedicated their life to preventing child abuse become a perpetrator themselves? But the truth is, I had been struggling with my own demons for a long time. The trauma I had experienced as a child had left deep scars that I thought I had healed from. But the truth is, I had just learned to hide them, to mask them with my activism and my outward confidence. But one day, my mask slipped. I let my guard down, and my dark impulses took over and my life was forever changed. Now, I'm facing the consequences of my actions. I'm in prison, awaiting my fate for my crime. And, as I sit here, reflecting on my past, I am filled with regret and remorse. I regret the pain and suffering I caused that young girl and her family. I regret the hypocrisy of my actions, the fact that I had presented myself as a champion of child welfare while secretly perpetrating abuse myself. But, most of all, I regret the fact that I let my own trauma and demons consume me. I regret the fact that I didn't seek help when I needed it, that I didn't confront my own darkness before it was too late. As I look back on my life, I realize that I was blind to my own flaws and weaknesses. I thought I was above the law, above morality. But the truth is, I was just as flawed and vulnerable as everyone else. And now, I'm paying the price for my actions. I'm facing the consequences of my own hypocrisy and abuse. And, as I sit here in my prison cell, I can only hope that others will learn from my mistakes, that they will seek help when they need it, and that they will never forget the devastating consequences of child abuse. As I look back on my life, I realize that the mind of a child is like a slate. Whatever you put in there is what they'll grow with. If you put love, care, and kindness, they'll grow up to be loving, caring, and kind. But if you put pain, abuse, and neglect, they'll grow up to be broken, hurt, and potentially abusive themselves. Don't be too busy to love and care for your kids. The love you don't give them, they'll get elsewhere. Be friends with your kids, to the point where they can confide in you about their personal lives. Be their safe space. Don't be judgmental when they tell you things, it's because they trust you. And to those who have been abused, I see you. I hear you. And I believe you. Don't let the pain of your past define you. Seek help, seek healing, and seek justice. As we conclude this installment of Kofi's harrowing journey, the gravity of his experiences weighs heavily on our hearts. The revelations of his past, though painful to confront, serve as a poignant reminder of the devastating consequences of child abuse. The complexities of Kofi's story, however, cannot be fully captured in a single narrative. The intricacies of his ordeal, the depths of his pain, and the resilience of his spirit will be further explored in the forthcoming installment of this story. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the traumatic events that shaped Kofi's life. The details of his ordeal, as shared in his own words, will provide a haunting glimpse into the darkest corners of human experience. Stay tuned for part 2 of this gripping narrative, as we continue to unravel the threads of Kofi's story and confront the harsh realities of child abuse. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed and learned from the video. We would love to hear from you. Your feedback means a lot to us. Want to be the first to know when a new video drops? Subscribe now and hit that notification bell to stay updated. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family. Until we come your way again, wishing you a day as bright as your smile. Have an amazing day.